face hands, trembling eyes bulging with a ridiculous sense of self-importance right there in our front yard. And all because she had jogged past the HOA clubhouse without carrying any identification. What he didn't know, and what I would have paid good money to see register across his face, was that the woman he was trying to threaten with a knockoff Glock was Major Evelyn Carter, an active Delta Force operator who had returned from a classified mission. Just 2 days prior, she hadn't even unpacked her field gear yet. And now here she was, standing in front of a wannabe rental cop holding a weapon sideways, like he had learned it from some terrible straight-to-DVD action movie I knew she could have. Disarmed him with nothing more than a pine cone and a zip tie. But for once, she actually gave the guy a chance to back down. He didn't take it. And that's when things got real. We had moved into the Willow Creek Estates precisely to avoid noise, chaos, and unnecessary attention. Ironic, really. Considering, while saving hostages from a militant stronghold, my wife once diffused live explosives during a thunderstorm. She desired a neighborhood where she could jog freely, have a garden in the mornings, and perhaps start a little chicken coop. Meanwhile, I was a proud cybersecurity nerd who acknowledged that indoor men had basic needs. The brochures were glossy and full of words like sanctuary, community spirit, and family-friendly events, but they made no mention of cosplay security patrols acting out tactical fantasies with golf carts. At first, the warning indicators were inconspicuous. 4 black golf carts were parked outside the HOA clubhouse, each with the neighborhood safety division written in white block letters. They appeared to be SWAT units, complete with cup holders and garden gnome decals. At the time, I thought it was adorable, perhaps for Halloween celebrations or neighborhood parades, but these people took it very seriously. They attempted to issue tickets to homeowners for letting their dogs run loose on their own property, which we kept to ourselves. The first week Evelyn was back from deployment, she busied herself setting up perimeter cameras and organizing the garage out of habit rather than paranoia, which she claimed helped with her transition. Meanwhile, I buried myself in code, pretending not to notice the strange things happening all around us. Within the first 24 hours, HOA President Margaret Hastings gave us a laminated badge, 3 clipboards, and the obnoxious smile of someone who isn't used to being questioned. She also said she was available around the clock for community needs, and gave us a 74-page booklet of neighborhood rules, which I half-joked through before realizing it wasn't a joke. One of the pearls was that there was no need to dry clothing outside. When I asked Margaret what intimidating meant, she gave me a tight smile and replied, "You know it when you see it." The grass must not be taller than 2.75 inches, and my personal favorite inhabitants must not seem frightening during recreational activities. That was the first significant warning sign we saw. Evelyn Ever, the diplomat, grinned and thanked her kindly as if she hadn't just spent the previous month rescuing hostages from enemy fire. She had a gift for that, which made the events of Day 8 all the more shocking. It began like any other morning when Evelyn put on her sneakers, put on her favorite hoodie, put on her earbuds, and went for a light jog around the block. I made coffee and turned on my computer to deal with a client server breach. But then the motion alert from the street FA, I observed that 2 golf carts from the local safety division were parked diagonally across the street, obstructing it. I dropped my coffee mug and ran barefoot outside as Evelyn stood motionless between them, her hands lifted slightly in front of her, and a pot-bellied man wearing a tactical vest pointed a gun at her chest while yelling something I couldn't make out on the camera stream. I got there in time to witness 2 other cops around him appearing confused but intent on imitating authority. Evelyn remained still, breathing slowly, and her eyes were constantly locked on the rifle pointing at her. I started to yell, but I saw the slightest movement of her right hand, which I took as a warning signal to the man with the pot belly. I subsequently found out that Officer Jeff Turner was complaining about suspicious behavior, running without the appropriate identification, and not according to HOA security regulations. I gazed at him in shock, wondering who in the world would jog with a badge pinned to their sweatshirt. Even when Evelyn inquired if he was law enforcement, her voice was quiet. "We are HOA police, which is higher than city cops here," Turner said, puffing up his chest. Evelyn offered him one more opportunity, saying, "Sir, I respectfully request that you lower your weapon for your own safety." A slight grin appeared on her lips, the type she normally saved for adversaries who were unaware that they had already been defeated. He declined, and it ended before I could blink. The rail cops came in a matter of minutes after the revolver skittered over the asphalt. Turner was face down and her arm was secured in a deftly performed compliance hold. She hadn't even broken a sweat. Turner and his friends yelled about assault and defying HOA authority. The lead officer looked at Evelyn's credentials, the real ones, and nodded once he said almost respectfully, "Ma'am, you're free to go." The HOA clowns weren't so fortunate, and when Margaret Hastings arrived 10 minutes later, she discovered her captain holding a bruised ego that appeared to have been caused by someone running over her pet peacock. This should have put an end to it, but instead, Margaret declared war, not just on Evelyn, but on both of us, without realizing she was stirring up trouble. Evelyn wasn't just another quiet suburbanite. She trained soldiers who trained soldiers, and she planned entire village reclamations in war zones. Since Evelyn had retaken cities, Margaret believed she controlled this neighborhood. The HOA emergency meeting was set for 6:30 p.m. Willow Creek Estates has lawn chairs, coolers, popcorn, and other elements of a tailgate party. Teenagers live-streamed the entire event when someone brought nachos. Wearing a khaki vest covered in HOA pins and a Bluetooth headset fit for an airport runway, Margaret stormed into the clubhouse. Behind her, a whiteboard displayed emergency response strategy stick figures, including a threat actor with devil horns and a valiant defender who appeared strikingly similar to Turner, save for having biceps the size of Schwarzenegger. Margaret dramatically said at the beginning of the meeting, "Neighbors, it is with a sad heart that I warn you of a terrible assault on one of our peacekeepers. Not volunteers, not safety officers, peacekeepers like this UN." I put up my hand as Turner sat slouched on the stage arm in a sling, appearing to have eaten a lousy burrito. "Indeed, Mr. Carter," Margaret called with a condescending tone. A brief inquiry I questioned when using a Fitbit to jog became a likely reason for an armed conflict. Margaret laughed in the room, but things quickly got out of control when the hacked body cam footage, which had been taken from the HOA officer's cloud sync device by a teenager, came to light. There was no place for discussion. Evelyn jogging calmly, when Turner screamed up on a golf cart while brandishing a weapon and Evelyn expertly disarmed him. The quiet was so loud that someone in the rear mumbled, "We should be paying her HOA dues." Margaret bragged about illegal video and deepfakes, but it was too late. The dam had already collapsed. The neighbors had requested audits. Questions were flying about where the money was going and why we needed a private army with zip-tied sirens and golf carts in a matter of days. Evelyn began what she named Operation Curb Appeal, a door-to-door campaign of purely factual information distribution pamphlets that listed HOA expenditure disparities indications and parodied Margaret's leadership. Margaret panicked and used threats, but not out of rage. New bylaws created overnight, but none of them lasted because, despite Margaret's failure, Evelyn operated with the calm composure of a field commander, quietly and methodically dismantling enemy logistics irrevocably. When the federal audit arrived, spurred by Evelyn's careful reporting, Margaret's empire fell apart. Of course, there were more golf cart chases, courtroom confrontations, and desperate livestream outbursts, but that's a different story for another time. The important thing is that nobody uses a ruler to measure the grass height in the gardener's garden. And Evelyn continues to jog every morning without any clipboard patrols or threats, just the beat of trainers on concrete, breathing unrestrainedly. And Margaret Hastings, as I last heard, is selling timeshares in Arizona because when you attempt to impose a dictatorship on a community full of true heroes, you don't simply lose. Delta Force disarms you in a kind and professional manner.